Hello you guys, so we are going to be moving on to our next type of transformation, which is called a dilation. And these are going to be an enlargement or reduction of a figure. So our figure now is either going to get larger or smaller. We are going to have something called a scale factor, which indicates how much the figure will be enlarged or reduced. So this scale factor is a lot like when we talked about similar triangles. Actually, those are kind of like a form of a dilation. So I think the scale factor part you guys will catch on to because it is the same. This time we're going to be calling the scale factor k, and so we're going to be given a number for k, and if k is greater than 1, it means that our dilation is going to be enlargement, or it's going to be getting bigger with our new picture, or when k is less than 1, the dilation is going to be reduced, or it's going to be a reduction, and our picture will get smaller. So once again, I've already drawn all the original figures, and we will be jumping around a little bit in the notes because there are some things in here that we really don't need to cover twice, or we don't need to cover it all because I've already gone through IXL and some of them don't show up. So we're going to focus on both types, both enlargements and reductions, and we're going to go from there. So the first one that we're dealing with today, in number 1, is triangle RST, and it gives us the vertices, which are listed there for you guys. With dilations, they're actually really, really easy. I think these might be one of your favorites. Basically, all we do is we multiply our points by the scale factor, and so every single number in our points will get multiplied by k in this case, which is 2. So everything is going to get multiplied by 2, and we're going to come up with our new points, and then those are what we're going to graph. So it's kind of like when we did our translations a couple weeks ago where we changed our points and then we can just graph those. So with this, R started off as negative 5, 1. So I'm going to multiply. I'll write this down for you guys. We're going to multiply by 2 because of the scale factor. So negative 5 becomes negative 10. 1 becomes 2 because 1 times 2 is 2. Negative 3 times 2 gives me negative 6. 4 times 2 gives me 8. 2 times 2 gives me 4. And negative 1 times 2 gives me negative 2. So as you can see, all I did was multiply all my numbers by a 2. Now we're just going to graph it. And I'm going to pause it like I did last week because that worked out really well. So I'm going to pause it and graph it, and I'll be right back. Okay, so that new picture is on there, and this was an enlargement because of our scale factor being bigger than 1. Our picture got bigger between our image and our pre-image. Okay, so you can tell if it's going to be an enlargement or a reduction just based on that number that they give you for the scale factor. Okay, so for the next one, k is equal to 3. So since k is bigger than 1, then this is also going to be an enlargement. And to get our new points, we're just going to multiply everything by 3. So hopefully you guys will like these because I think they're kind of easy, at least in my opinion, just because all you have to do is multiply, or sometimes we'll divide, but we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so we're going to multiply all these numbers that they gave us in our points by 3. So if I start with negative 3 and multiply by 3, negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. 0 times 3 is 0. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 3 is also 6 again. 0 times 3 is 0. Negative 2 times 3 is going to give me negative 6. And negative 2 times 3 once again will give me negative 6. So I'm going to pause and graph it. All right, so this is the finished picture once we have all of that graphed. Okay, so same thing goes with if k, our scale factor, is less than 1. Except for in this case, instead of multiplying, because k is equal to 1/2 in number 3, we're going to be dividing everything by 2, or it really is the same idea as if we were to multiply everything by 1/2, but we know if we multiply by 1/2, it's the same as dividing by 2. And I think that that's typically easier to think about it in that way anyway. So because this is a 1/2, you can either think about it as multiply by 1/2, or what that really is doing is dividing by 2, which I will be doing because I think that's easier. But again, because that is a 1/2, that means that this one is going to be a reduction. So our picture, we should expect our final picture to be smaller than our original. All right, so same deal. Let me flip back to the pen. We're going to divide all of our original points by 2. So -10 divided by 2 is, sorry, I don't know why that does that sometimes. Oh well, I'll mess with it later. I think I can still fit everything on here. All right, so -10 divided by 2 is -5. 2 divided by 2 is 1. -2 divided by 2 is -1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 2 divided by 2 is 1. -2 divided by 2 is -1. And -4 divided by 2 is -2. So keep in mind all of these signs will stay the same, so you don't have to worry about changing any of those. And there is our picture. So keep in mind that if you haven't noticed already, these pictures, we're not turning them in any way, so they're kind of still sitting in the same direction. They are going to look a little weird. If your picture doesn't look completely centered, that's normal because we're really centered around the origin here. So they might not be, like for instance, in number 3, that new diamond shape is not directly in the middle of the original, but that's okay. That doesn't mean that you did something wrong. Sometimes they just look that way. All right, so we're going to skip number 4 because we're actually going to do one like that later. And we're going to try number 6 because I want to show you what would happen if it were a third. So once again, that number is less than 1. So that means that we're going to be making our picture smaller. And we also know that we can get to our new number by either multiplying by 1/3, which sounds terrible, or we can divide everything by 3. So that's what I'm going to opt to do this time. And again, this is a reduction. Oh no, I didn't mean to highlight that in red. Oh well, I'm not going to go back and change it, so that one will just be a little different. Okay, so we are going to take all our points, divide them by 3, and the nice thing is that most of the time they're going to give you points that are going to divide evenly. You're not going to have fractions, so don't worry about that. All right, so -15 divided by 3 is going to give me -5. -3 divided by 3 is -1. -12 divided by 3 is -4. -15 divided by 3 is -5 again. 0 divided by 3 is 0, and -9 divided by 3 is -3. And I'm going to pause it and go and graph this thing. Okay, so as you can see, this is kind of what I was talking about. Notice that new picture is not even inside of the original. That's okay. Okay, so it can move to a different place, but notice that we're not like turning our shape or anything like that. It's just smaller, and now it's in a different spot. All right, so I wanted to do 7 and 8 with you guys because this is a lot like some of the ones that they're going to have you do on IXL. And you are going to be given an image, and then you're going to have to graph the new image using a scale factor. And this will give you an example of one of each type that you will see. So you are given this picture. This time I didn't have to draw it, which was nice. And you're going to graph the new image using a scale factor of 2. So what I did before this even started is I wrote down all the original points, and we're going to find the new points, and then we're going to graph those. So this is exactly how I would do it on your homework if I were you. They're going to give you a picture. I think that you should take a second, write down what each of your points are, then use your scale factor to change them to your new points, and then go back and graph those. Okay, it sounds like a long process, but it really doesn't take that long. And it's totally worth it. That way you don't get things all messed up. So I wrote down my points. Scale factor is 2, so that means we have to multiply everything by 2. So I'm going to write down my new points. So -1 times 2 is -2. 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. So I'm hoping that I don't like mess something up for some reason, but I think that we're good. So I'm going to go and graph these and see how it turned out. If you're ever doing this and you get a graph and it looks really, really weird, chances are you probably want to double check your points. So let me graph it and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so this one seemed a little bit weird because one of the points is in the new figure is the same as one of the points in the old figure, but I think it's all okay based on how it looks. So moving on, we're going to do the same thing. This time the scale factor is 1/4. So once again, when you're doing your homework on IXL, I would write down the points like I did ahead of time. Then take your scale factor and either multiply or divide depending on what type of scale factor it is. Write down your new points and then graph them. So in this case, because this is a 1/4, remember if it's smaller than 1, you're going to divide by that bottom number. So we're going to divide by 4. And we're just going to do that to all of the points. All right, so this 4 is going to look a little bit weird because of that 2. Usually you're not going to have to deal with anything like this. But negative 2 divided by 4, that's going to give me a negative 1/2. And again, you're not usually going to have to do that, so I wouldn't stress about it too much. 8 divided by 4 gives you 2. 4 divided by 4 gives you 1. 8 divided by 4 gives you 2 again. 8 divided by 4 gives you 2 again. Negative 4 divided by 4 gives you negative 1. Negative 6 divided by 2. Okay, so there are some weird ones in here. I didn't really notice that earlier. Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so it just is what it is. Negative 6, 4. If we divide negative 6 by 4, then we're just going to reduce it. And so we get negative 3/2, which is the same as negative 1.5. And then 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay, so it looks kind of weird, but it'll be okay to graph, so I'm going to go do that. And again, don't stress about those fractions. I've been through and I worked through the problems that they give out on IXL. I never got anything like that, but it's okay for us to see it in the notes. So let me go graph it. Okay, so while I was graphing it, I noticed one thing that I had left off. When I wrote down the original point for I forgot the negative on the 4. So that I prime will be negative 1.5, negative 1, but the dividing still works the same. Okay, so the very last thing that we're going to do is one of the other types that you have assigned on your skills on IXL, and that is that we're going to basically take 2 pictures where they give us the original and then the new image, and we're going to figure out what the scale factor would be. Now, that sounds really complicated. Here's what you need to do is you need to pick a point, whatever point you want, to compare in both images. So I chose in this first one, I chose to use point D. Okay, so the original point D is 0, 6, and D prime is 0, 2. I don't even care about the other points because they're going to follow the same rules, so I don't need to do this more than once. You only need to do this one time with 1 point. Okay, so looking at the picture or looking at my points, you can figure out that clearly this is a reduction. Okay, it's getting smaller between my original image and my new image. Okay, so I know it's a reduction. That tells me that I know K has to be less than 1, or my scale factor will be less than 1. And to get from D to D prime, really the only thing I have to compare is the 6 and the 2. And if I want to get from 6 to 2, and you can think of it as multiplying or we can think of it as dividing, I know that I am... Oh no, what just... I don't know what just happened, guys. Hold on, I'm going to pause it and try to figure out what just happened. Okay, I don't know, and as you can see, things went away. So I'm just going to keep going, and I will go back and redo the other stuff that we did earlier later. Okay, so sorry, I've been fighting with this easy teach thing, and it's amazing, but it's also very frustrating sometimes. So this may be a repeat of what I've already said, but we're trying to get from 6 to 2. It's a reduction, so we know that we're going to be dividing by 3. Once again, it's erasing stuff. Sorry. Okay, so we're dividing by 3 because the only way to get from 6 to 2 is either to multiply by 1/3 or divide by 3. So that means that k is going to be 1/3. That would be our scale factor. So whatever you divide by, make sure that you put a 1 above it and make it into a fraction. Now the last one, originally I was looking at w and w prime. I do not remember what those were. I think these are 8. So w was 2, 2, or negative 2, 2. And w prime is negative 8, 8. Okay, so clearly to get from w to w prime, this is going to be an enlargement. Our pictures got bigger. And to get from 2 to 8, or negative 2 to negative 8, however you want to think of it, we multiplied by 4. So because it's an enlargement, because we multiplied by 4, our scale factor is going to be 4. So just to recap, all you have to do is just pick one of your points if they ask you to do this, and just compare how the points basically changed. How did you get from one to the other? And that'll give you your scale factor. All right, so I am going to go and figure out, well, I can't really figure out where it all went. I'm going to have to go back and redo all the stuff that we did on this page, but I will have those posted in Schoology along with a blank copy if you want to print it out and follow along. You guys do have an assignment on IXL. Make sure that you read the directions in Schoology so you know what SMART score to get. And other than that, please let me know if you guys have any questions at all, or if you're having any difficulty getting your stuff done. If you are behind, please try to get that caught up. We don't have a whole lot of time left in e-learning, and I want to make sure that you guys all are successful with it. So please let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Other than that, I will talk to you guys later.